Welcome to our 2022 Virtual Contractor Summit. We're so excited to spend this time with you today. My name is Sabrina Burse, and I'm a CSC at Belay. And today I'll be interviewing our CEO, Trisha Shortino, who's gonna dig into what's happening at Belay. I'm gonna ask her some fun questions and share with you the focus for the remainder of 2022. Now, we've received some great questions from you, our contractors. And these questions have come from our virtual assistants, bookkeepers, web specialists, and social media managers. Now, we'll try to address as many of them as we can, and thank you to those who took the time to submit your questions. We appreciate it so much. Trisha, before I dig in with you, what would your opening message be to some of our contractors before we dig into these questions?
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. I'm so grateful to be here with you today and with all of you, our contractors. I first really just want to start by saying how absolutely grateful I am for you in the day-to-day. We know that you show up and serve your clients so well on behalf of Belay in everything you do, and we are honored to partner with you. And thank you for spending the next hour or so with us as we get to talk about all things Belay. I am absolutely looking forward to it.
We asked the contractors to submit some questions in several different categories. Now let's get started with the first group, where we ask, if you could spend 30 minutes with Trisha one-on-one, what would you want to learn from her? One of our contractors wants to know, what makes a successful working relationship?
That's a great question. But the first thing that comes to mind, always great communication. Great two-way communication. And sometimes that's a dream and sometimes that's reality. So I think an excellent relationship foundationally all boils down to having great communication between client, contractor, contractor CSC, peers, whatever that looks like. Communication's the key.
That makes so much sense. Now, you talk about this a lot, but how did you decide on your first steps towards your BHAG? And for those of you who don't know the term, what is a BHAG?
A big, hairy, audacious goal, right? We all should have them. Some of them are for our careers. Maybe some of us have them personally, you know? We might have BHAGs that say one day you want to live on the beach. But for me, in my career anyway, my BHAG was to accelerate my career over the years that I was in it. I was just innately driven to lead. And so many, many years ago, when Belay was first started, I really started with the goal that I wanted to grow my leadership and my opportunities while I was here. So I think the first step is set the BHAG and know where you're going. And then everything that happens between today and that day is up to you.
Absolutely. And we've heard your story before, and it's so inspiring. What would you say sparks your drive?
Yeah, I think that I innately as a person want to do better tomorrow than I do today, and that shows up in many areas of my life. And so personally and professionally, as a mom, as a wife, I just desire to avoid the status quo. I don't believe in it as a practice, right? So I'm always looking to improve my marriage or how I can have a better relationship with my kids. I also look at how I may improve what it is I do at work or how I can leave Belay better tomorrow than I found it today. And I've done that in every seat that I've been in throughout my larger adult life, my whole journey, and it's paid off. I'm just fueled by growth, by being an individual who's constantly growing.
And we've seen the growth at Belay. I mean, and you spend so much time doing so much. I'm sure our contractors want to know, how do you give yourself space to be Chief Visionary Officer here at Belay?
Yeah, so that boils down to a lot of boundary setting. As a person, and I believe this for everyone, you really have to have boundaries in your life and goals in all areas of your life. So I think a lot of people have career goals and they may falter to have personal goals or friendship goals or financial goals. But if you have all the right goals in place, then the boundaries have to set themselves to achieve all the goals. So if you only have work goals or career goals, you will probably spend way too much time at work because that's the only goal you're reaching for, right? But if you have personal goals to have a certain amount of date nights, or if you have a personal goal to have a connection with your kid, then what that means is if you're really achieving all those goals, you are putting boundaries around your time to make room for all of those things to fit into your life. And then by those means, you wind up leveraging the right amount of hours you have in a day for all those different things. And so boundaries for me and my virtual assistant would absolutely be in the background going, she's not kidding about this, but I am a boundary holder. And so getting really comfortable with no means no. And I have certain rules like I will not have a meeting after 4 p.m. and legit, it's been years since I've had a meeting after 4 p.m. I mean, you just have to set them and keep them.
Were you always good at that, keeping those boundaries, or is that something you have to work?
So there's this thing called burnout, and sometimes brick walls enter our lives, right? I think when I was young, I really wanted to prove myself, and I probably worked harder than I should have. I like to sometimes say I'm a recovering workaholic, although I don't know if you ever really recover. But yeah, I definitely am a recovering workaholic. I'm one with really great boundaries now. Sometimes it takes people have to hit the wall so they can really stop and reset their life and say, this actually isn't working for me. I'm exhausted. I've got to take better care of myself. You know, what would be ideal is if someone on the other side of this video was listening to me and could say, you know what, before I hit the wall, let me do a better job at setting boundaries for myself and my career so that I can be a better holistically healthy person. And I think you absolutely can be driven and have a successful career or work life and also do that in 40 hours and also have great relationships with your kids and also travel and also be a great cook. Like you can do all the things. It's about the quality you spend in those hours, not the quantity of those hours.
That's so good. When I think about boundaries, I think about habits. And that kind of brings me to my next question. One of our contractors was wondering, how does someone change their brain's kind of reward system to break bad habits and create better ones?
Yeah, I think the first step is to first create the better one. So, and you know, it's really about a lot of self-accountability. And if that's a problem, self-accountability, then get a peer partner, get a peer accountable partner, whether it's your husband or boyfriend or child or girlfriend or somebody at work. Habits, you know, they say it takes 21 days to stop or start any good habit. So whatever your habit is that you want to stop or start, consistently do it for 21 days. And that's hard to get on that bus. So I would use things like timers on your phone. Like for me, I have a habit of not drinking enough water. So I literally have to have timers on my phone every 2 hours that say, drink water, drink water. Drink water. And I have friends that will sometimes text me that I'm not drinking enough water. And so, you know, you can create a framework around what the cadence is and your new rhythms will be. And you will need little probably prompts and reminders because it's easy to fall off a new habit bus.
That's so good. And I love the fact that you brought in like having that support and having accountability partners. I feel like my role as a CSC is to almost be an accountability partner for my clients and my contractors. So good. Yeah. Well, constantly having, you know, conversations with our contractors, and one of them had a specific scenario that we wanted to run by you. They said, I feel like I always finish work too early and have so much time left over. How would you best handle this type of scenario, and how do I continue to add value in my engagement?
That's a great place to be in, honestly. Yes. I think that's a great opportunity for you to show up and be proactive. And so I know as an executive who works with a virtual assistant, I've worked with many over the years, having a virtual assistant come to you and say, hey, what else can I take off your plate? That may be too vague of a question, and in the moment, the leader might say, I don't know, or they're too busy to think about what they can take off their plate and give to you. But go peek around, go look at the calendar. If you know what your client is up to, if you see their emails and you can see their calendar, what's coming ahead, you could actually offer very specific things you can do For example, I see you have a meeting with your team next week or in 2 weeks. Can I prep a presentation for you? Can I prep an agenda for you? I think if you can offer to do things that are specific, that help a leader not have to think about what to delegate, then you'll probably do a better job at finding more tasks to do. And so I think you can insert yourself appropriately, and you'll get great kudos for it, because I can't imagine any leader who would ask you to not do something like that proactively. But it gives you a great opportunity to be ahead of them.
Absolutely. I love that. Be specific.
Specific.
Show that intention. Clear is kind. Unclear
Clear is kind. Clear is kind. Like vague, like what else can I do for you is vague. So get specific on what you can offer to do for them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I know that contractor really appreciated that answer. Next, let's talk about climbing higher. We asked our contractors, what are some best practices that you want to know from Trisha? So our first question up is, how do you make time for big goals while also keeping up with your day-to-day to-dos?
Oh, well, so this is the trick about big goals. Big goals are achieved by day-to-day to-dos. So it is actually the day-to-day to-dos that get you to the big goal. And so ideally, you have your big goal and you break your big goal down into what that means you need to do in the series of 12 months. Then if you have 12 months to achieve your big goal, what does 1 month look like? And then if you have to accomplish this in 1 month, 12 times to achieve that goal, then what does 1 week look like? And then if I need to accomplish all this in 1 week to get to 1 month, to get to 1 year, then what does my day look like? And so I think if you turn your BHAG or your big goals into the micro habits or things you need to do in your day-to-day, they become your BHAG. So your day-to-day is the progress you're making towards your BHAG.
I love that. On our discovery calls, we ask our clients all the time, what is your win? Mm-hmm. And we're kind of casting vision for what the engagement will look like, but there are stepping stones to get there. 1 week, 2 week, 30-day calls, all of that. How do you handle kind of maintaining a healthy work and home life balance?
It's that boundaries thing. So I'm really maniacal about my calendar, if you will. It has colors, it overlaps with things, it's pretty. I overlay my personal and my professional calendar. My virtual assistant sees and owns both of those things. And I have those boundaries that I have in place about my calendar. So I agree to work 8 hours a day, and so I schedule accordingly. And nothing will happen that's more than those 8 hours a day. Because after a certain time of day, after 5 p.m., I'm now a chef and a mom and a wife and, a gardener. I'm like all the other things. So I think if you have the right boundaries and you plan your day, then it happens. It's feasible. It's feasible.
Well, another one of our contractors asked, how do you create space in your day or week or even life to pursue personal interests outside of work? For example, if you wanted to learn something new that might benefit your personal well-being.
Yes. Well, I think that that comes into, how you integrate your hobbies into the time that you're not working, if you will. My yoga class that I take is 9:30 on Friday. So, and that's okay because everybody knows it's at 9:30 on Friday. Even my VA knows, like, this is what I'm doing. This is technically during a work hour, but I'm gonna start my day a little early. I might pop into my first emails at 7:30. I might have a shorter lunch that day, but I'm still ending at 5 o'clock. So I think it's just like any other goal you set for yourself. You should have goals that are personal. So if your goal is to learn a new hobby, you set it and you've got to schedule it. Nothing happens if it's not scheduled.
And Belay, I feel like, really gives our contractors that third option, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we want you to live your entire life.
Absolutely. Well, another contractor asked, how do you ensure that you and your team members are communicating with warmth through other virtual platforms?
Emojis. No, I'm kidding. Yes. I mean, I think written tone is a very big thing. It can be misconstrued in so many ways. So I think you have to be really, really mindful when you're writing things, how it can be perceived on the other side. And I'm actually, this is actually one of my personal things. So my communication style, I'm a D, I'm an 8, and I'm red, and I'm all the things for very abrupt communicators. So maybe you have some clients out there that are like this, you know what I'm saying. So my communication style is very short, and there's no sugar, and it's, can you do this thing? Like that would be an email that in my world would be fine. But what I've learned over time is the person on the other side receiving my email has thoughts about what my email feels to them. And so as you grow in your leadership and you realize and you say to yourself, what is it like to be on the other side and receiving information from me? Then maybe your tone changes. So keeping warmth in communication sometimes involves, how your salutations, how you welcome communication, like, hi, how was your day? Hope you had a great weekend. Then, can you do this for me? Then, I hope you have an awesome day. So creating the extra language inside your communication to add warmth, I think, is important on both sides of the fence, from contractor to client and client to contractor. It just keeps things cordial, and great customer service is just great customer service, and it goes both ways. So I feel responsible to serve my VA with great customer service and warmth, and she feels responsible to give it back to me.
Absolutely. Communication's so key.
Yes.
And we were talking about boundaries, communication, giving feedback, all of those things I feel like can be communicated through written communication.
Yes.
Preferred over the phone, though, sometimes too, so that
Yes.
you can build that relationship like you've built with your assistant.
Yes. I mean, I think you have to also agree, like, what forms of communication you're going to use for what types of things. Like, there are a lot of things that they're great in email, they're great in Slack, they're great in a text. Yeah. Some conversations are just worthy of a phone call or worthy of a Zoom. So I think you have to decide what those are for your specific relationship. And I think the longer the relationship goes and you've built relationship capital, there might be more things that can go into writing because you actually understand each other. But that just comes with time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's keep the questions coming.
Yes.
Another one. So how do you get to know all the little quirks and personality traits of someone when you're virtual?
When you're in meetings with people, you have to actually make the time to get to know people inside the meeting. So you could very well get on Zoom and just go right into a task list and then hang up and say thanks, and you'll never really create any relational capital there. But I think it's worthy of spending 3 to 5 minutes at the top of any meeting, engaging as people, and then also the same at the end of your time together. So, I mean, we do that as a practice at Belay. Is like we literally have on all of our meeting agendas where the first 5 to 10 minutes, we just say it's welcome, but it's basically just, how are you? How's your weekend? How are the kids? Where people can share. And then we integrate into our culture different fun things that we do as a team so that we can get to know each other, right? We'll do would you rathers on Zoom calls, or we had a little fun, and you're uncovering, who people are and creating an environment where people can be themselves and we don't take ourselves too seriously. Seriously.
I love that. Now, I have to know, what would you say to maybe a contractor who is struggling with connecting with their client on a one-on-one, or like struggling to get them on a Zoom call or something like that? Like, how can they communicate that why that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And I know it's big, and I'm sure more than one person has asked this question, right? How do you engage your client? I think, first and foremost, the commitment up front. I would say if you're going into a new relationship, or you're on a kickoff call, or you're in your first weeks of engaging with a client, is to honestly share your expectation. Like, hey, I feel like the way for me to best serve you is to really know and understand your preferences and you. And the best way for me to understand who you are and how I can best serve you is to know more about you and engage more with you. I think if you can connect the dots and say, I can better serve you the more I engage and connect with you, that maybe that would resonate with the client to understand that matters. And I think there's an opportunity for a CSC to step in also and provide that coaching, which I know we do. But if you're still having a hard time, I really believe that you can serve somebody better if they can be in front of you. And so I would say relentlessly don't give up.
Be persistent.
Be persistent.
Commit.
Don't quit.
Yeah.
Just every week. Hey, let's have this call. Hey, I need to run some things by you. Hey, whatever that looks like. I say be persistent.
That reminds me of one of our core values. We run towards our problems, challenges, and opportunities. So
yes. It's like help me help you. In order for me to serve you, I need you to help me, and I need you to answer my phone call.
Well, now it's time to talk belay. Here are a couple questions our contractors had. How did the idea for the name belay come about, and is there a story behind it?
There's always a story. There is a story. So when we merged our 5 companies into one organization, and we're really pondering what the name of the new organization would be, we went through a pretty intense process with an outside marketing firm that we hired to help us brand the organization. Belay, and a lot of names were thrown around. We wanted a name that had an underlying meaning and we felt connection to as an organization. And so Belay, the founders, the Miles, the husband, Brian Miles, the original founder of Belay, was a rock climber. So he had, toured around the country and done different rock climbing opportunities, and interesting stories have come out of that. So when he was looking at rock climbing terms, belay was one of the words that stuck out to him, because belay, when you're a belayer, it really means that you are the person that is holding the rope for the person who's climbing. So you are supporting the climber so they have safety and security and they don't fall. And we felt like, wow, that's what we do. We hold the rope for our clients and contractors and our team members. We hold the rope so that they can climb with safety and security. And because we're holding the rope, they can climb higher. And so that's what that all was born out of, is the fact that Brian was a rock climber, and that's the word that therefore resonated with us. And then so was born Belay.
How do you think a contractor can wow their client, or even provide value the first week of work?
Yeah, I think the first week is hard for everybody, right? So you have a client who's having probably maybe delegating for the first time, delegating to a new person, but truly as a virtual assistant or a bookkeeper, SMS, whatever it is, your first week is a lot of first impressions. So I'd say if you're going to put 150% effort in at any time during engagement, it is literally those first couple weeks. Where I used to be a virtual assistant. I had a client here with Belay, and I'm not gonna lie, the first couple weeks were very overwhelming. I was getting set up. I was learning preferences. I was logging into new tools that I had never used before. I had to learn how to use tools I'd never used before, and it was overwhelming. But I was focused on doing the job and doing it right, and so I was less worried about how many hours I was putting in, aside from getting set up so I can get this right for this gentleman, and getting myself set. So those first couple weeks are hard because there's a lot of onboarding, but I think if you can do that and invest up front, you make excellent first impressions that, God, you just keep building from there, and it's a winning formula.
Totally agree. I love that. Okay, so I know another question that some of our contractors had questions about were, how is contractor pay determined? Can you talk a little bit about contractor pay?
Yeah, so we have an awesome analyst that works here at Belay. She's great. And even before her, we've done this. Every month, actually, we do competitive analysis as an organization. We also do annual analysis. Now, we do this analysis for both marketing purposes, client purposes, and contractor purposes. So we do analysis on all the other organizations that are like us, organizations that provide virtual assistant services. We look at what their offerings are. We look at what their pricing is, and we also look at their pay rates. And so we do this monthly, goes out to our entire organization, and we make sure that we are in line with what the industry standards are. Actually, Belay is on the higher end of contractor pricing when we do competitive analysis. And so that's where we want to be, because we feel like we have excellent contractors, the best contractors, the best ones out there. So we want to be competitive. We want to be on the higher end, and we will keep doing that analysis competitively to make sure that we're in line.
Absolutely. Just showing that they're appreciated. I know with some contractors that I work with, if they're doing like an extra special job, I might send them a frugal wow. Just those little gifts to say thank you for just serving so well. Thank you for investing the time to really wow your clients. So
yes, gratitude is at the core of everything we're doing. So
I agree. Yeah, I love it. Okay. Well, so a couple of other questions include, will Belay open any different roles in addition to the ones that we currently have? And if so, is there a timeline for that?
Well, okay. So, the world is our oyster at Belay. Yes. We have a dual focus. First and foremost, we want to be the best at the current services and roles we currently provide. So we're very in tune with making sure what we do is great. We want to make sure our VA services are fantastic. Our social media management services are fantastic. So we never want to lose sight of those things. However, we want to make sure we capture opportunities to do more and serve more. And it's from that some of our new CFO services and bookkeeping services are now coming to light, which are giving more opportunities for our bookkeepers now, because we're adding services to an existing service line because we're seeing gaps and opportunities where we can serve more. So I think the evolution of that is, there's a lot of potential in what the evolution is of the services we offer. We're just going to do so very carefully to not create a flood. We want to make sure we're deep inside our services and thoughtful, and there's excellent quality in them, more than we want to just keep adding another new thing. So that's a yes and a no answer.
We love new things, so I'm excited to see, what all that entails.
Yes.
Thanks. Alrighty, now it's time for some fun. We've got some rapid, quick fire questions.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Alrighty. Do you choose to dress up for the day, or do you choose more of an athleisure approach?
I'm a dress down kind of girl. In the day-to-day in my home office, it's t-shirts and yoga pants. I'm not gonna lie. Now, if there's a specific meeting or recording or podcast or something like that of course, we're gonna dress up. But my day-to-day is casual. That's part of the benefits of working from home.
Comfy's the way to go.
Comfy's the way to go.
I agree. All right, can you or do you really turn all of this off to enjoy your free time?
Yes and no. Yes, I literally shut the computer and walk away every day by 5. It's off. I'm done. I don't ever walk into my office on a weekend. I literally close the doors in my home office, and I don't go in there again until Monday morning. So I do completely walk away. Now, as a CEO of an organization, I'm always thinking about, while I'm relaxing by the pool, am I thinking about, it would be great if we could do this thing. So it's in my mind all the time. I think that's actually part of what just comes in my position, is that you probably want a CEO who's always thinking about what it is we can do better at Belay. And so it's always on my mind because I care a lot about it. But I do shut down the work when it's time.
And I love the fact that your work is really separate. You have a totally dedicated space for work, and that way it's easier to kind of turn that off.
Yes, I look forward to literally walk out of the office and shut the door and leave the laptop in. The laptop does not come out into the room, the house.
On Fridays. See you Monday.
No, that's right. That's right. Yes.
Okay, so weekends, time away, enjoying your time. What are some ways that you like to do self-care?
Well, I love my yoga. I love a good massage. I love gardening.
Ooh.
Okay, only flower gardens.
I didn't know that.
So not vegetable or fruit gardens. That's a dream one day. I love being in the yard, doing yard work. And I love cooking. And my husband does the cleaning, so it's a perfect relationship.
What's your signature dish? I gotta know.
Oh gosh, meatballs and cheesecake. I'm Italian, so I have an awesome meatball recipe. And I make a pretty badass cheesecake.
I'm hungry already. That sounds so delicious.
And then water. Like I said, water is our thing. So we like to pool it, lake it, boat it, jet ski it. I mean, we find ourselves near the water when we can.
Sounds like you do a lot of self-care. Like you have a lot of options.
Those are all that's my chill time, yeah.
Okay. Another question was, what has been the most helpful book you've read that transformed your mind about business?
Yes, I would say there's a couple of great business books. The first one that I think is really impactful, especially for new leaders, is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. So if you're a leader, a new leader, want to be a leader, it actually has a workbook version. It is packed with nuggets of goodness. It is an excellent leadership development book. So highly recommend that. If you are a leader and you're looking for mind-shifting things, I love The 7 Perspectives of Leadership by Daniel Harkavy. It's an excellent book. And then I love anything by Simon Sinek. So he has a couple books out there. So The Infinite Game, Start With Why. He has some great, great books as well. So those are some of my core favorites.
I love that. I love the fact that us as a team, we also do some readings that help us grow personally and professionally. So that's awesome.
Yes, leaders are readers.
Leaders are readers. Okay, well, we're learning so much about you. I want to know maybe what's your favorite color?
Teal blue. Tiffany blue, dare I say.
We love Tiffany. I love it. Okay, so where is your favorite place to travel?
The beach, any beach. Any beach. I specifically love the Caribbean. So like if I was like, I do a vacation, I would likely go to a Caribbean island somewhere. The blue Caribbean water, the quiet sandy beaches. My husband and I love to snorkel. Every time we go somewhere, we will snorkel. Just love it. Yes.
Yeah. So you talked about your husband. Any parenting tips when it comes to raising a teenager?
Oh, teenagers. Run for your life. Is that a parenting tip? No, don't leave them home alone. Parenting tips for teenagers. Yeah, teenagers are hard. Parenting is a lot like leadership. So I feel like it. My husband will tease and say, "Are you managing me right now?"
Maybe.
Is this work, Trisha, talking to me, or are you my wife? Okay. Yeah, parenting teenagers. Teenagers have a lot of emotions and feelings. And the biggest thing I can think of when I think about parenting teens is be available and be there, but there were going to be times where they don't want you to be. And so they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about and really practicing empathy and not getting your own feelings hurt in the process. It's hard, but remain present. I've found that, just by looking at my teenagers and then their friends, like the teenagers whose parents are still closely connected seem to thrive. And so I still put a lot of boundaries and rules, if you will, on my teens because I believe a lot in boundaries. So they have to live inside them also. I'm giving them the right amount of freedom. Yeah.
I love that. I don't have any kids myself, but I'm taking mental notes. This will be good for me later on down the road.
Space, but not too much space,
Yeah.
Stay present.
Such good information. Well, Trisha, as we wrap up today, what's maybe one thing that you want to leave us with?
Yeah. First of all, this has been a great time with you. Thank you, Sabrina. I just want to say one last time to our contractor community that we are so grateful for you. You have been chosen. You know this. It wasn't hard to get this role here at Belay. We're very picky with who we let in the doors. And if you're here, it's because you've been thoughtfully chosen to be here. And you are thoughtfully caring for clients who have made really big decisions to come here and trust us to help them. So I thank you for showing up every day. I thank you for caring and serving your client, knowing that they are trusting us to do so. And there's a lot of weight that comes with that. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, Trisha. I don't know about you, but I've never felt more inspired to serve up, serve well, and help our clients climb higher than ever before. We're joined by current friend and previous Belay client, Jason Teagle, and his former Belay bookkeeper, now CFO, Sarah Miles. They're gonna share their journey from how it started to where they are now and everything in between. This is a peek behind the client and contractor curtain to show the extraordinary impact each of you makes in the lives of our clients every day. Thank you both so much for being here. Now, we'd love to start off the conversation by getting to know more about you both. So Jason, I'd love to hear more about you and your company.
Sure, well, thanks for having us. So I'm the founder and CEO of Kaleidoscope, which I started in 2015. And we are a leadership brand incubator. So we essentially build brands that help leaders become better. And we've been doing that now 7 years.
I love that. And over the years, you eventually met Sarah. Sarah, I'd love to hear more about your relationship with Kaleidoscope and how that all got started.
Yeah, it's a great story. I was actually a Belay contractor. I had left the corporate world and all of the hours that required when I had my second child, and really just needed a change in my life personally, and was excited about the opportunity with Belay professionally. And early on in my partnership with Belay, I was actually matched with Jason, and his wife, Jamie, at the time had been doing the company finances as well as managing 3 young kids, which became a little too much with the growth and complexity of the business. So I was so excited to be matched with them at that time, and it's really just been a great relationship.
I love that. And Jason, for you, kind of what has the partnership with Sarah been like? What has that meant to you professionally and personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only word that I can honestly think of is the word transformational. You know, I think the impact that Sarah has had on me as a leader, my wife, my family, and the organization has just been extraordinary. I mean, I am a better leader. Our marriage is better. We have a healthier family environment. We have a better organizational culture because of Sarah's just coming in and being a leader, being a servant, and really just helping to make all of our lives better.
That is amazing. Can you think about what life was like before you were working?
I can vividly remember, and I don't want to go back.
We see glimpses occasionally because now I'm working more even in his personal finances as well. And so I get to spend time with Jamie and Jason together on a monthly basis. And it's been very rewarding for me to even see things from another perspective. So I've always been working in, the business finances, but really looking at things from the position of an owner and how that affects them personally. It's been a great growth opportunity for me, and I think has brought a lot of value to them personally in addition to the business.
We're always encouraging our contractors to see how they can serve their clients holistically. So it sounds like that's something that you've been able to do from both sides. What do you think makes a partnership, a relationship like this successful?
Well, first of all, I can't say enough about the matchmaking process that Belay goes through. I really feel like Belay cares about both their contractors and their clients, and not just trying to match someone up from a needs perspective or from a skill set perspective, but really looking at each of them holistically. So I think that that entire process has really set us up for great success. Because we knew going in so much more about each other and how we would work better together. And it helped me as a contractor to better tailor my communication style or ask better questions so that I could better serve the clients.
When you reflect on the first 90 days of the engagement, which we know was a very crucial time in the relationship, what steps did you all take in order to kind of ensure success, thinking like 30, 60, 90-day goals?
It was very important starting off with a new client to make sure that the lines of communication are open and frequent. So initially, after our first kickoff call, I went ahead and made the expectation that we would be meeting frequently. With business owners, finances are not the most exciting things to be meeting about, and a lot of times you find that they may want to just turn everything over and bury their heads in the sand and assume that we're going to do what we're supposed to do. But it's important to have that be a collaborative process so that not only are we crunching the numbers and doing reports, but that we're bringing them in so that it's really more of a partnership and less of just a hands-off transition. So it was important that first 30 days that we were meeting frequently and that there was constant communication. In addition to the nuts and bolts of transitioning passwords and all of the stuff that we have to do. But then really after that 30 days, looking at, okay, what worked well, what works with his schedule, because he was traveling a lot at the time, and how we could better set up ourselves for success long term, and what that communication process looked like going forward.
Absolutely. And Jason, for you, I'd love to hear kind of, what did you learn? Was it an easy process working with the Belay bookkeeper? What was that experience like for you in the beginning?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Sarah did, really early on in the relationship, and I would encourage, the contractors that are listening to look at themselves as value creators. I think it would be easy to say, okay, here's the 5 steps that I'm supposed to do as part of the scope of work or the agreement. But Sarah came in with a mindset that was, how do I create value? So I think several things that she did. One, understanding what my needs were. Every client's going to be different, and so understanding, okay, what drains me, what do I want to fully get off my plate, what can lighten my load. I think she did that really well, understanding who I was, where I was gifted, what I was best at, and how do they take everything else off, And I think also it's easy for a leader to have someone like a bookkeeper or an EA come in and say, here's a list of tasks that I need you to do. At the end of the day, what I really needed was, I needed not just a taskmaster, I needed a leader. I needed a leader to come in and not just I can delegate responsibilities to, but that could own a division, that could own a department, that could own a body of work. And that's what Sarah did. She came in and took her arms and just said, I'm going to take accounting and finance and HR and sort of all of the things that, okay, that's not Jason's sweet spot. I'm going to take that and I'm going to own that as part of my responsibility. And so I think the mindset going in of, I want to create an extraordinary amount of value. It may not be specifically laid out in the scope of work, but I'm going to have my eyes wide open to the landscape of what I'm walking into and saying, I'm going to take that. I can do this. I can do it better. I'm going to create a system here. I'm going to create a process here, and I'm going to own that, and I'm going to lead that. As a business owner, as a leader, that's invaluable. That's just not 20 hours a week. They're going to, manage the little budget over here. But she came in and said, I'm going to lead a massive component of your business. And to me, that's invaluable.
It sounds like you all were able to build trust over the first 90 days especially. Was it easy for you both to build trust, or did you feel like it took a little longer than maybe you had originally thought, or what was that like for you?
I think for me, it came pretty quickly because I trusted the matching process. We had gone through 2 or 3 other agencies before going to Belay, and we were matched or had interviews with people that they were so off. Like it just, I mean, good backgrounds and experience, but just not a culture or DNA fit. I mean, very clearly, early in the interview, we're like, this isn't. And when we were talking to Sarah, it was like so quickly, like, I mean, she gets us, we get her, like, let's do this thing. So I think there was the process enabled trust to occur really early on, whereas someone from the outside of our kind of world, it would have taken a longer to establish that level of trust.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think it's important with any engagement that you're walking into it with the full realization that the client is coming to you as a subject matter expert. And so whether it's your first client or your 7th client or your 10th client, it doesn't matter how many you have. It's important that you understand the place that they have brought you into and that you are the subject matter expert in that area. I think it's also important to always have your eyes open and look for other areas that you may have background in or another pain point that you can help solve in that situation, and to really just build that relationship with your client so that they'll be open to letting you stretch yourself and help grow the company.
I love that. You saw an opportunity and you took it. What type of qualities have you seen in Sarah? And Sarah, I'd love to hear from you too. What qualities have you seen in Jason that you feel like helped this relationship thrive?
Yeah, I think initiative would be one. For me as we're early into the company, we're a few years in, we're getting this going. There's gaps everywhere, there's holes, there's things that need improvement. Sarah just came in and just took over in like the best possible way. I mean, identifying, okay, this is broken, I can fix this. Okay, there's a hole here, I can fill that. There's a gap over here, I can help close that gap. And so I think initiative, I mentioned leadership. Sarah, even as a Belay bookkeeper, served on our leadership team. I felt it was so important that function played a role on our leadership team, regardless if it was a full-time employee or not.
Yeah, several of the things that I love working with Jason and just love about the relationship is that first and foremost, I can trust him, and just being able to, walk away from, my great Belay situation, but really believing in his vision and the way that he leads a team and leads his family, and he is the person that you need. It's not someone who, is one way in this room or this group of people and is another way somewhere else, regardless of who they're around. So just being able to trust his leadership and his wisdom and vision for the company, that has been a huge thing. Another thing is it has been stretching to me in some ways, just because it's a world that this industry is not one that I've worked in the past. And while I can do a lot of the functional things and I have a lot of background there, just being challenged to take those opportunities and to learn. And anytime I come to Jason with hey, why don't we try this, or could we look at this a different way, he's always been so encouraging for me to really delve into whatever that area is, and has been open to trainings and all kinds of other things that have not just helped the business but have helped me as a person. And that's been super encouraging. And he always has a word of affirmation when anybody is doing well on the team. He's the first one to hashtag win us in our Slack channel. And so it's just a great corporate culture that he's created. And it's an amazing team to be on.
Love to hear that. I'd love to hear just a little bit more about how Belay's kind of matching process, and I feel like you touched on this a little bit, how our matching process and kind of client support played a role in you all's engagement?
Yeah, I mean, from the initial conversation that we had with Belay, it was abundantly clear that the priority was to find a good match, not a quick transaction. I felt like that was what we experienced with some of the other agencies. It was like, how quick can we get this agreement signed? Or that pressure didn't exist. It was, hey, if we need to go through 4 or 5 interviews to find the right one, that's fine, and so it relieved this pressure of like, we need to say yes to the first one, although she was. It relieved that pressure knowing like, hey, this organization is not here just for the quick sale, but because the process works so well, I mean, look at the relationship now that's thriving, it's growing. It was just clear that the motives were pure from Belay, that they wanted this to work long term. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about Belay. And our CSC, I mean, she was just so much fun and personable and very trustworthy. So for me as a contractor going into even the first kickoff call, it just felt, I didn't feel nervous at all. It was very much at ease. It's best to just trust the process, and you can see that once you have that relationship with your client, you will understand how important it is to really just put yourself out there, be honest about who you are and how you work well and what type of client you're looking for, and know that Belay is doing the same thing on the client side as well.
I always say quality over quantity.
Yes,
What a quality match.
Absolutely.
Well, you talked a little bit about just like culture and you all's work relationship. In what ways did Sarah kind of get integrated into the culture at Kaleidoscope?
Yeah, I think as a business owner and as a CEO, I think from an optics perspective, there is extraordinary amount of good that comes from incorporating them into as much as possible as a team member. So, everything from, as I mentioned, Sarah joining our leadership team, Sarah having a Kaleidoscope email, giving her a title with Kaleidoscope and his email signature, and interacting with our clients and really thrusting her into the culture as if she was a W-2 team member. That's a really valuable from an optics perspective. Hey, we don't just have this part-time bookkeeper over here that kind of swoops in when needed, but she is so intertwined in the fabric of our organization.
Mm-hmm. And I think earlier you kind of talked about that gratitude piece. Is that something that comes naturally to you, or were you very intentional about like showing gratitude when she did go above and beyond?
I think, for any startup or young organization, like there has to be an understanding that people are going above and beyond what they're either asked to do, scoped to do, being paid for. And so I feel like as a young leader, as a young CEO, like that can only be my posture. Like I can't have any other posture, because that is just consuming me. Like there's too much to do. I'm overwhelmed always. Like I need people that like aren't just checking a box and saying like, hey, I did my duty, but like, hey, I am bought into the vision. I am a vision carrier for your organization. And so I think for me, it was just saying like, and still to this day, like I know when people are going above and beyond. So like my only posture can be gratitude, honestly.
What would be your top 3 most tangible tips for getting the most out of a client and contractor relationship?
Yeah, I think one would be, and this is me as a leader speaking to contractor, I think being open to feedback, and not feedback in like, here's what you're doing right or wrong, but feedback in terms of how to best support the leader. I think of one example, I am not a finance guy, I'm a brand guy. And so hence why Sarah's in the picture. But there were several months where we were having our monthly finance meeting, and I was dreading them. Like I was like, oh, it's going to be an hour. I'm not going to know what she's talking about. But more importantly, I'm not going to know what my action is as a result. Like she's going to tell me all these things about the budget, but like I need to know like 2 or 3 things, or else my behavior is not going to change. And so I basically said, like, in essence, Sarah, on the next finance call, I want you to present the financials as if I was a kindergartner, okay? And what I want you to do is go through the budget and color code it. I want red, green, or orange. Greens or red, green, or yellow.
Yellow.
What I want you to do is any areas of concern, I want you to make it red. Green, don't worry about it. Yellow, like, let's have a conversation. And it like changed the game for me because it was like, okay, really all I need to worry about is the red. And it's very clear, like, okay, we're X dollars over on this line because it's red. I can go ahead and change my behavior. So it took, not that what she was doing was right or wrong, but it was, hey, in order to serve me better, like, I need to give you this feedback. And that's more on me. That's more like my inability to understand what she's talking about. So I think taking feedback, I think understanding the person that you're serving at like a deep level, like not just like strengths and weaknesses in the organization, but what makes them tick? Like what makes them come alive? Like what drains them? What do they feel bogged down by? Like, and understanding that next layer of the person that they're working with or serving, because I think that was one thing Sarah did. Like she, not just like, okay, he's, good at casting vision, but not good at accounting. Like she got down to like what is it that like fuels me? What makes me come alive? How do we position him more as that, as an advocate for me and my family and our company? So I think understanding that, and then I think just as I said before, initiative, coming in and going above and beyond, creating value, and seeing where there needs to be help and like jumping in head first, and just going above and beyond, even if it's above the scope.
Mm-hmm. Any tips that you have for any contractors listening in?
Always be listening and trying to figure out how you can better serve them. I think that just being aware of who they are as a person and who they are as a leader is invaluable, to just being able to bring more value. Because when you understand that whether your client loves finances and thinks that they know all of the things or not and wants to bury their head in the sand, you could have someone anywhere on that spectrum, but being able to communicate with them in a way that that they can better understand just the situation and what's happening with their business, because a lot of times business owners especially will have a lot of vision and no idea when it comes to whether what they're doing is profitable, aside from looking at the checking account balance. And that's not a way to sustain a business, much less grow one. And so being able to bring that added value to say, okay, if we do this, or if we turn this knob, it's going to get us there. Or if we want to be there, these are some five tangible tips that we can do to help accomplish those goals. But we have to look at it in a total ecosystem and bring it down to the easiest way to communicate to your client, because they could have seen all the numbers before. We're not doing rocket science, but it's just not the way that they tick, and it's not a way that communicates as well as, hey, if you want to win, if you want to have this goal met, then these are the ways that we get there. So just being able to look at it from the larger perspective, and not just looking at the debits and credits.
Right.
I think in summary, as I sort of think about like, okay, there's a couple thousand contractors, like what would I tell them? And like part of me is just like, I wish that you could see it from my standpoint of like how much better my life is because of Sarah. Like total transformation. I mean, like my head's more clear. I have zero worries about finances. Like I know she's got it. There's not financial pressure in our home culture, because we've got a really tight budget. We review it monthly. We've got the color-coded system. So it's the weight that has been lifted off of me, my marriage, and our family because of one person. Like, I want every contractor to know that. Like, it's not just, hey, I am doing a 20-hour a week, like, job for someone. Like, I am like, have the potential to change that person's like trajectory of their life. And that's like, that happened to me. And so that's my encouragement challenge is like, look at this broader. Like, look at this as like, how can I come in and be like an agent of good in that person's life? So.
You all have such an inspiring story. Well, thank you both just so much for taking the time to speak with us today and for just really sharing your journey. It's really inspirational. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Hello. I hope you're enjoying this year's virtual Contractor Summit. For those of you that I have not had the honor of meeting yet, my name is Chris Konings, and I am the Director of Contractor Services at Belay. Today, I'm going to speak to you about one of our most requested topics, self-care, and why it is so important. We hear that word thrown around on social media, in our news feeds, and in countless self-help books. But what does it really mean? The literal definition of self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's health and taking an active role in protecting one's well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. Because if you don't take care of yourself, who will? It all starts with you. Intentional self-care will help you run the race longer, put you in a better space to deliver wow support, and create emotional margin for you to tackle any hard things that come your way. Investing in self-care will help you to be a better person inside and outside of work. It may seem counterintuitive, but being mindful of your own needs helps you better care for others. It's not an act of indulgence. It's necessary for your sake and the sake of those around you. But even though it's necessary, it seems to be the easiest to neglect. No more neglecting yourself. With a little bit of intentionality, you'll find it easier than you think to weave self-care into your day. But before we share some practical ways you can implement self-care into your routine, let's state the obvious. Self-care is difficult, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. It takes work, and it requires asking yourself what you need to feel joy, maintain energy, and experience balance in your life. Here are a few tips. Start by getting a full night's rest. Exhaustion is real, and it can feed stress. Then, try to begin your day from a place of peace rather than chaos. It may mean you have to wake up a few minutes earlier, but take the time to meditate, pray, journal, or even get in a quick workout will help put you in a better place before you jump into the craziness that mornings bring. Throughout your week, carve out time to do activities that recharge you. Take a break to read a book, go for a walk, grab coffee with a friend. These things are not frivolous. They are life-giving and bring balance to the person who enjoys them. And forgoing them, that leaves you drained, both mentally and physically. Another great thing to do is identify a person who will listen as you process or download. You might have that perfect friend for this, or may need to consider having a mentor or a coach. Finding a great therapist or counselor might even be a great step. This kind of relationship can help give you perspective and encouragement. When you are self-employed, you are constantly looking for things for your client to delegate to you so you can give time back to them. This same concept rings true in your personal life. If it is doable for you, consider delegating or outsourcing things that don't bring you joy so you can focus on the things that do. I know what you're thinking. This self-care sounds wonderful, but it won't work for me. I have zero margin. I don't have enough time to do the things I'm supposed to do. How do you expect me to find time to work, care for my home, and take time for myself. If that's you, then it's time to say no to something else. It may not be no forever, but it needs to be no for now. It's time to prioritize what's important, and you have to be on that list. Don't feel like you have to make sweeping changes all at once. Allow yourself to start slowly. Block some time on your calendar for yourself to pick one thing this week that you are going to do for yourself. And when in doubt of your ability to commit, consider enlisting the help of an accountability partner to make sure you're fully unplugged and pouring back into yourself each day. Trust me, you need this for yourself and for those that you care about. If you take the time to develop this practice, your clients, your family, and those around you will benefit. And most importantly, your body and mind will thank you. We have lots of content in our contractor community related to self-care that you can reference because we want you to be the best version of yourself that you can be. Thank you for all that you do to serve our clients every day at Belay. We are grateful for your talent, your time, your energy. We hope that today has filled your cup with inspiration, knowledge, and real-time tools that you can apply to all that you do. Your first action, build self-care into your day. Now, as living proof that investing in internal transformation has the power to impact all areas of your life, I'm excited to sit down with Mohammed Anwar, author of Love as a Business Strategy and CEO of Softway, for a very inspirational conversation. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Mohammed Anwar, co-author of Love as a Business Strategy. Earlier this year, our team picked Mohammed's story to read as a professional development book study. During our planning time with our team, we downloaded several of his resources, and I was surprised to one day have an email from him in my inbox. That was the start of what has become an incredible partnership, learning from Mohammed and his team. I'm really excited for you to hear from him today. Welcome, Mohammed, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit about your strategy and your why behind Love as a Business Strategy?
Sure. So to give you context to the genesis of Love as a Business Strategy, I'd have to take you back to 2015, 2016. You see, as a CEO and a president of a technology company that I founded in 2003 when I was 20 years old, while I was pursuing my computer science degree, I had this vision of becoming a millionaire as fast as possible. And within 10 years of running the business, I believed I had hit the pinnacle of success. I was driving my fancy cars, flying my planes across Texas, and I was living what many would call the American dream, especially for me as an immigrant to this country. And as I was successfully running this company, and we had over 300 employees, in about 2015, 2016 or so, things weren't working very well. Our business was on the verge of bankruptcy. We were hemorrhaging cash, losing employees, and our organization was stifled by a toxic workplace culture. And in a moment of introspection, I realized that this was all my fault. My selfish needs, desire to be all-powerful and greedy, led our company to an almost destruction. And as the journey went on, in order for us to survive, I had to go through what we refer to today as our darkest day, and I had to lay off over 100 employees in one day. And at that point in time, I really had no idea how to run the company any further. I was lost. I did not feel confident. I really didn't know if we would even be able to make the next payroll. And in a few weeks of having that incident, I had the opportunity to go to a football game for my alma mater at University of Houston. And this is in 2015 when University of Houston was having a Cinderella season. We were on a 9-0, winning streak. And this was meant to be the 10th game. So I was really excited because I wanted something positive in my life at that moment in time. So I went with my brother to the game. And as we were going into the fourth quarter of the game, we were losing by 20 points and playing with our third string quarterback. And I was disappointed. I wanted to leave the stadium as early as I could to avoid Houston traffic. But something inside of me told me, stay back, be there to support your team. And I'm glad I did, because we ended up winning that night with less than 30 seconds left by a point. And that just got me extremely excited. I felt rejuvenated. And I started to see Softway's own fourth quarter financial comeback. Mm-hmm. And I started to see Softway through the eyes of our Houston Cougar football team. Mm-hmm. And so that Monday, I was ready to go back. I was going to fight. I'm not going to give up. And I logged onto Facebook Live to see then rookie head coach Tom Herman addressing the press in the press conference. And I was really inspired by what he had done and turned around the whole program. And in that interview, one of the reporters asked him what had led to the resilience of his football team and the success that he'd been witnessing. And what he said changed the course of my life from that moment in time. He said it was the love that the football players had for one another and the support they had for one another that had led them to win that night. But also that culture of love is ultimately what is going to build championship teams. You can have all-star players on your team, but if they don't love one another, you are never going to win championships. And he began to elaborate and said, this isn't your love you dog, love you bro kind of love. This is the genuine, you have my heart in your hand kind of love. And as I heard that, I was, really moved, a little shocked. But at the same time, I was so inspired by Coach Herman that I began to ask myself, do I love my team? And the resounding answer was no. I didn't care for my team. I didn't create an environment where they can love one another and support one another. And that's when I committed to becoming empathetic, trusting, and vulnerable leader, where I can create a circle of safety where people can learn from their mistakes, forgive one another, and thereby creating an environment of inclusion and belonging. And I'm still on this journey. I have not arrived because this journey is a journey with no destination. It's a permanent state of transformation. And within 3 years, not only did we survive, but we started to thrive so much so that our largest customer came to us and said, hey, we want a piece of that culture that you have. Can you help us? And they forced us to go on a pilot, to do a pilot for their leadership. And from the leadership, that turned out to be a world tour of training more than 1,400 leaders from 46 different countries, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. And we shared our story, and they loved the concept of culture of love and love as a business strategy. And that's when they pushed us and said, you have to share this message with the world. And that's what gave birth to the idea of writing a book, because all these attendees of our Seneca Leaders sessions were very moved and said, this has to be shared with the world. And that's what gave birth to this book.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. It's so interesting how life hands you these experiences like a football game, and that sometimes there are messages within that when you're in a place where you need to think through some things, that life will present those little messages to you if you really look for them.
Absolutely.
How long after that happened did you guys start to write the book? Mm-hmm. And then the other question is, I know that you have co-authors, that
Yes.
you did not do this alone.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that and the why behind the importance of having other people involved in the process?
Absolutely. So that game was November of 2015, and we released our book April 27, 2021.
Okay.
We were determined to write the book late 2018. We even wrote the outline of the book, but we really didn't get to drafting the book and putting the manuscript together till about 2020, when the pandemic hit, is when we found a lot of time to do this. And I can tell you that this journey is not a journey that I traversed alone, or I even traverse now alone. For Love as a business strategy to be successful, you have to have a team that is willing to support you, be there beside each other and help each other and grow together. And for me, I can tell you, had it not been for my teammates and my coworkers who were willing to forgive me and support me and give me the feedback I deserved, and basically put up a mirror in front of me so I could see what I was doing. Without them, there would be no Love as a business strategy. And so I felt compelled that this story is our story of our organization and of our team being resilient and fighting for our survival, but also for each other. And so this story must be told from other perspectives, and not just the CEO perspective, but how people can be in any position at any level, and they truly can be influential and lead the change. And they were a big part of leading the change in our organization. And I wanted their voices to be heard. So hence, we wrote the book together.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's so important, that it was actually what Belay strives to do in our relationships between our clients and our contractors, is really having that place of trust, that place of synergy, where our contractors are really buying into our clients' culture and how they can influence that culture from the seat that they're in.
Sure.
And I think that's just a really great segue into what we're going to talk about today. So
Absolutely. And I can tell you that largest client of ours who asked us to do the very first leadership training seminar, we were their contractors. We used to visit their campus 2 to 3 times a week. And those team members preferred to come hang out in our conference rooms and cancel their own internal meetings to hang out with us, because they were so impassioned by the laughter, the culture, and what we brought to their organizations and meetings, that they were inspired to go change their own culture because of their contractors' culture. And so that's an example where I can tell you, not only did we build and continue to build our culture for ourselves, but as an outside party, as a third-party contractor to many organizations that we work with, we can speak the truth far more easily than in-house employees can. And we basically were a platform to help instill that need for a change and show them how to change. So I actually think third-party relationships to organizations can be far more influential than you can imagine in changing cultures.
as you know at Belay, our business model is really centered around 1099 contractors who are not employees, and they are not employees of the client's business.
Sure.
How do you see our contractors taking steps and being able to be part of change when they're in a seat that maybe necessarily they're not in charge?
Sure. So our belief is that, number one, in order for you to be influential and a leader, you don't have to necessarily have formal titles or authority given to you, because leadership is genuinely from a place of influence. And to gain that influence for people around you, you have two types of personal power that you can use. And number one, that's expert power. If you're being contracted out for a specific skill set that you have, that's expertise that is valued, respected, right? And so you have this natural influence, power of influence around you through your expertise that you could use to move people, influence people, change people's minds, decisions. Similarly, there's another type of power called referent power. And this is also a personal form of power that comes by way of relationship and trust. And when you can be in any role, any title, a third-party vendor, contractor, and you could still have an influence on the people around you, up the ladder, parallel to you, or even below you. You don't have to necessarily have a formal title to influence change. So I believe in your business model, in your business situation, and for the contractors especially, that don't be discouraged by the formal titles and or roles and responsibilities that are given to people inside of organizations as the only form of power that can instill change. There are actually personal forms of power that can influence change and do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And it is far more influential than even the formal types of power.
Yeah. You said two of my favorite words, relationships and trust. And those are actually things within the first 30 days of an engagement that we really push on our contractors to build. So talk to me really quickly, maybe give me a couple of tips or tricks. How do you feel is the quickest way to establish trust and relationships in the workplace?
So there are 3 elements of trust. And the reality is I can trust anybody, but my level of trust is usually lower when we start off. And the goal is to elevate the level of trust. And these 3 elements of trust are expertise, consistency, and relationship. And so the first element is your expertise. If you have a particular skill or talent that is needed or desired by the person who is contracting you, then, and if they witness that expertise, then the level of trust increases. And if you have consistency, meaning you walk the talk and you're reliable and you're able to deliver things you say you will when you say you will, then that consistency elevates your trust even further.
Yep.
And the last element of trust is relationship. And relationship, when you build your relationship and you build a stronger relationship, your level of trust increases as well. And if you have a fallout in your expertise, say you can't do something because you don't have the skills to do something in a particular domain, then that level of trust might drop a little bit. But you always have the opportunity to rebuild it. Same thing with consistency. If you aren't able to deliver something when you say you will, once or twice, the level of trust will drop, but you can rebuild that again. But if your relationship has a fallout and you are unable to rekindle that relationship, trust drops the most. And so our key to building trust is by virtue of relationship. And we're not talking about relationship that's just purely from a surface layer. Like, we're talking about getting to know the person genuinely. And the way you do that is by allowing each other to have a space where you can be vulnerable, where you can be able to admit to things you don't know when you don't know, be able to share things beyond what we bring to the workplace, but even about your personal situations or your challenges that you might be facing at home with your kids. Anything that is traditionally not just maintained at the workplace, but that's going on in your personal life, if you're able to bring a little bit of that to your relationship and have conversations around it, it goes a long way in improving the trust. And that's a trust we call the vulnerable trust, which is where we are able to increase that trust by first being vulnerable with each other.
So what happens in a situation, and this does happen sometimes, where one party, as an example, let's just say the contractor's willing to be vulnerable and trust, but maybe the client's not. What advice would you give that contractor to create and foster that client to feel more comfortable with that vulnerability to work on their relationship?
Yeah. So everybody has different levels of being vulnerable with each other. For some, it's a lot deeper and you can go a lot further, whatever you're comfortable with. But you also have to understand that your counterpart may not be ready or as comfortable, and that's okay. Because while trust is a two-way street, you must start with trust if you want to get the trust in return.
Right.
So if you're going to be vulnerable, it's okay. Don't do it with the expectation for them also to be vulnerable, but do it because you know it's the right thing to do. And in due time, hopefully they begin to trust you more and they can start to be vulnerable as well. But vulnerability can be very simple. It doesn't have to be your deepest, darkest secret, right? So if your counterpart is even getting as vulnerable as being able to apologize and say, hey, I'm sorry, I messed up there, that's vulnerability, and that's good. And when you are able to see that somebody is willing to let their ego down to be able to apologize, that comes from a place of bravery and being vulnerable, and that must be reciprocated with vulnerability. So even if that's the level you see, know that that is probably very, very difficult, especially for leaders, business owners, where we may have bloated egos. Just being able to say sorry, it comes from a place of pure vulnerability.
What are some things that our contractors can do to facilitate more courageous conversations? Because it's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to have a hard conversation sometimes. And I think one of the things that make our contractors so incredible at what they do is they are able to have some of those courageous conversations with their client when it is uncomfortable. From your experience, what are some of the things that you have seen that people do within that space, in that courageous conversation space, that helps them be successful?
Sure. So I can speak from my own experience and how our team has then adopted to certain type of principles. We call them the reliable leadership principles. And so I can give you a few principles for this type of a situation, but all of these principles require us to have a growth mindset. So that's like a default expectation where we are able to demonstrate and have a growth mindset and the right attitudes while we go into these sessions or conflict resolution or courageous conversations. And the first principle that we try to abide by is to be able to assume good intent of the other party. Many a times when we go into those type of situations, if we are assuming the bad intent of the other person or the other party, you're not already starting from a good place, right? You're already starting from a place of judging the other person, and you're already going in potentially with accusations or certain type of statements that you don't really know for a fact. You're basing it all on assumptions, and that will take things south. Assume good intent with even the conversation, that if the counterparty says something, assume good intent with what they're saying, because ultimately doing that allows you to not react and instead respond. And that's another reliable leadership principle, which is we need to react and not respond. And in order to be able to respond instead of reacting, it does start with assuming good intent. Then the next step is to be able to choose honesty over harmony. Many a times in these type of conflict situations, because of the discomfort of having such conversations, we can resolve to harmony and try to minimize the situation or circumvent from the truth and believe that you're doing it because you don't want to hurt the other party. But in reality, all you're doing is delaying and still festering on something you couldn't resolve.
You're letting it build and letting it build. And
Exactly. And one day it will explode. But even along the way, you're going to always have that at the back of your mind, and it will change your interactions. It will change your relationship. In fact, it'll be destroying your relationship. And hence, trust is going to go down. So when we are able to love one another, you are able to have the courage to have honest conversations over choosing harmony. And I think many people think they're maintaining the peace, but really that's fake harmony. Because genuine, real harmony is achieved when you are able to have honest conversations. Now, that doesn't mean we're giving you a free pass to come from a mean spirit
Right.
and be rude
Right.
to the other party. You have to still do it with compassion and from a place of love and respect, but still choose to be honest. So those are the three principles that I can definitely advise our contractors to keep in mind as they have those courageous conversations.
Okay. So part of the intent of this event is for our contractors to really have some tangible items that they can take away.
Sure.
And take back to their engagements, take back in their lives, and make them better contractors for Belay, and really just make them better human beings. So
Yes.
what are some other takeaways that you would really like to share with our contractors today to help enrich and enhance and make them better at what they're doing?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go back to those reliable leadership principles that I kind of used in explaining how to have courageous conversations. So there are a few more of those. And I personally use these to hold myself accountable to how I behave around not just my coworkers, my customers, my family, my relatives, and even strangers. And I'd love to share those tips or principles that can help everyone, not just create an environment of love and support, but also hopefully become better human beings. And so the first reliable leadership principle that I'd love to share is I will put others' needs first. It could be as simple as, if somebody says, hey, I need to talk to you, clearing your schedule to make time for that person and things that you may have had deep work to do, delaying it a little bit to take care of the needs of another person are simple examples. They don't have to be magnanimous things. They're very simple. So that's reliable leadership principle number one. The second principle is look for the good in others while you look for your own weaknesses. And this is something of a principle that I had to embody as I was on this journey of building a culture of love. I had struggles with loving my team, and one of my mentors told me, Mohammed, it's simple. It's because you're so focused on the weaknesses of others that you don't find ways to love one another. Because you can't see beyond people's mistakes. You can't see people beyond their weaknesses or their challenges. And as long as you are hung up on the bad things that you see from your perspective, it's going to be very difficult to love the other person. And so being able to look for the goodness in people is a very good way to embrace anyone in your organization or even a stranger out on the street.
Yeah, and I would think too that would just make things like those courageous conversations, or if there are hiccups in an engagement, or if things just sometimes go off the rails sometimes, because they do, because we're human beings, right?
Yes.
But if you look for the good and focus on the good in yourself and others, it makes those situations a lot easier to navigate.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then as I mentioned earlier, I will assume good intent is a very good principle, and it's as simple as being able to not assume someone's intent, because the reality is as humans, we cannot read each other's intent. We can only, see and view the interactions and the impact. And so a lot of the conflicts come from a place of assuming bad intent of one another. And if you're able to assume good intent, at least it'll stop you from reacting and allow you to respond. And when you're responding, go clarify.
Right.
What was your intent when you did something, right?
Right.
But it at least brings it from a place of clarification and not from a place of assumption and judgment. And it allows you to have better resolutions and better conversations as a result. Being able to recognize and appreciate people for what they've done as often as possible, whenever possible. And sometimes even just going a little bit out of the way and writing a thank you card goes a long way. And I received a bunch of thank you cards from Belay a few months ago, so I really appreciated those. And I still look at them when I need to uplift myself.
Yeah, that is one thing that's really nice about Belay. It's one of our core values is gratitude. And I've always been a thankful person, but since being at Belay, gratitude has taken a completely different role in my life.
Yeah.
And it is true. When you recognize people for even the smallest things, it's amazing.
Yes,
So-
absolutely. And I can tell you, just by practicing gratitude, you are already becoming humble, right?
Yes.
You are practicing humility because it takes a lot of courage to put your ego down to recognize others.
Yes.
And not think of yourself, but think of others.
Yes.
And you're automatically practicing humility when you are taking the effort to write a thank you card, which means you prioritizing other people over you and your ego and your own recognition to recognize others.
Yep.
And that's big on maintaining humility, but also other ways of bringing more humility to conversations is being able to say, you know what, I don't know something,
Right.
or I need help. I can't do this alone. And those are other ways to become humble and maintain humility. And then another principle that I can leave you with is the honesty over harmony. I think it's something that our people desire, our teams and each other as humans owe that integrity of being honest. And many a times we misunderstand integrity as not hurting someone,
Right.
or dismissing any negative situations, or not allowing things to be what it is from other people's perspective because you don't want it to be negative and you
Right.
try to dismiss it, minimize it. And honesty is kind of minimized to harmony. Let's move on to the next agenda topic if someone brings up a concern, or if there's a little bit of complaining or negativity that might come in. And what we don't understand is that if we don't make space to have honest conversations and be honest ourselves, we're probably just being dishonest by trying to
Right.
push things under the rug and not addressing concerns.
Right.
And so being able to practice honesty or harmony can do wonders for you, your relationships, for your organization, teammates. And while in the moment it's very uncomfortable and it causes a lot of discomfort, when you get on the other side of it,
Yeah.
you are truly achieving harmony, because that is
Because we
real
can't
harmony.
change what we don't know, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah. Those are some really good tips.
yes.
Really good tips.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So what do you say to the contractor who says, this sounds really great in theory, but it sounds like a lot of work. So what's in it for me? What would you say to that?
Yeah, it is a lot of work, but when you really get to the bottom of this, we as humans have an innate need to be valued, respected, included, do work with purpose, with meaning. We want to go into Sunday night and not be anxious about going to work Monday morning. And we want to wake up and want to be excited and be happy at what we do. And that need is worth it. I think it's hell of a reason for why, if each and every one of us can begin the change and start the change by first changing ourselves, then we're going to create an environment that's not just going to benefit us, but also benefit each other around us. And this is a need that all of us desire. And there's a big need for bringing back humanity to the workplace. And we can't wait for the CEO or your boss or your contractor, client, vendors, peers to change. If everybody kept waiting for everyone else, we'd never be able to bring back humanity to the workplace. So yeah, it requires hard work, but it must start with you. And I'm not shy to tell that to our clients, our customers, our audiences, because it's a reason that everyone, whether you're a CEO or the last seat, last row, we all want to feel valued, respected, treated fairly, right? And so when everybody wants this, but everybody's waiting for each other to change, then we're never going to change. So if at least some of us begin the change journey and start by changing ourselves, then we might inspire others, we might motivate others, we might be able to then really gain that critical mass needed to transform corporate America or the corporate world and bring back humanity to the workplace. So I say that's why, and it's worth it.
So it all starts with us.
It starts with you and me and every one of us.
Yeah. We know your journey into starting Love as a business strategy. What really was your why behind it?
So I didn't really uncover my why till probably recently. And it starts with my childhood. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia to Indian parents. And my parents were immigrant workers in the Middle East working to, improve the life of their children. And I'm one of 5 siblings. And my dad, when he used to come home every day after work, he was frustrated. He was drained. He had to deal with a lot of politics and issues and challenges because of the work environment and the culture at his workplace. And especially as an Indian immigrant working in the Middle East, he wasn't treated the same way as everybody else. In fact, Indians in the Middle East are paid the lower salary compared to a local or an American or a Britisher. In fact, the American citizen makes almost 10 times an Indian citizen does for the same job in the Middle East. So there is already unfairness or no equality there, just based on where you're from. And my father would come home and be upset. And when I wanted to go to karate or go to the beach or go to swimming classes, I was always afraid to ask my dad, can you take me to swimming? Can you take me to the beach? And I always was like, he's tired. My mom was like, he's upset, he's tired, let's not bother him. And it had an impact on me, on my childhood, for me and my siblings. And as I got on my journey to start my business, for some reason, I began to behave and create an environment that was the same that my dad experienced.
Repeating the cycle.
And it's just this repeated cycle. And when I finally had my realization, I recognized that I was doing the same thing to my kids, my family, and my co-workers' families. And when is this going to stop? How are we going to change? And I want to be there for my children. I want to be there for my wife. I want to be there and take my son to swimming classes. I want to take my daughter to track. All of us have those type of needs and desires. We have our hobbies, we have our desires, we have our families. And I recognize that we all spend more of our awake hours at work. And we try not to be ourselves. And we try to hold on to our patience, our honesty, just to maintain this fake harmony at the workplace, and then come home and where we're the most comfortable, we actually mistreat the people that we love the most. And so when I had that realization and moment, the why became for me to start at the workplace. If we can really help people be themselves, feel valued, respected, included, and treat one another like human for who we are, which is we're not perfect, then we can make an impact not just for the business to be successful, but we can make an impact to the families, to the community, to the society, and ultimately make our world a better place. We can change the world if we start at the workplace. If we can just learn to be more human, treat one another with respect, that carries over into our personal lives, into our society, and can make such a big difference. So that's the why, and I want to do it for my own family, but I also want to do it for the rest of humanity.
What an incredible legacy.
Well, I hope that it will happen in my lifetime, but if it doesn't, I would love for my children to carry that forward and make it a legacy of all of us.
Yes, yes. Well, we at Belay will be cheering you on.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Yes.
We really hope you enjoyed our time together today, because we certainly have. Belay would quite literally be nothing without you. You show up every day with servants' hearts to serve our clients so extraordinarily well. You're the reason Belay is where it is today and why our future's so bright. We hope you walk away from your desk today feeling inspired and motivated. But most importantly, we hope you feel our gratitude for how well you serve our clients and each other.